Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Eleanor Grace Whitmore. In 1975, the day my sister got married should have been the happiest moment of our family's life. But instead, it turned into the day my husband tore me down in front of everyone I loved, and handed me the reason to finally burn his lies to the ground. You could at least try not to embarrass me in front of everyone for once in your life, he hissed, gripping my arm so hard I winced. We were in the middle of the reception hall, chandeliers glowing above us, violins playing soft behind champagne glasses clinking, and he didn't care. Not about the guests, not about my feelings, not about the fact that my own mother was standing 3 feet away pretending not to hear. He wanted people to see. He wanted to humiliate me. "You're making a scene, Thomas," I muttered, trying to pull away. "This is Lila's wedding, not some stage for your tantrum." "Oh, I'm making a scene," he barked, throwing his hands up with that cruel smile he always saved for private moments. Except this time it wasn't private. "You're the one who walked in here dressed like you're trying to compete with the bride. Did you forget you're pushing 40, Eleanor?" I stood there, paralyzed. My blood went cold. That dress, navy satin, floor-length, my sister chose it for me. Said I looked elegant. Said I'd make her proud. But now every eye in that room turned like vultures, and I suddenly felt naked under all of them. Someone gasped. Someone whispered. My father looked away. But Thomas wasn't finished. "You walk around like some aging prom queen, acting like you're still the prettiest girl in the room. Well, newsflash, sweetheart," he leaned in close, his breath sour with whiskey, "you're not even in the top 5. The room went silent. And my heart dropped into my stomach like it was made of bricks. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Because something inside me broke, but not in the way he wanted. I looked him square in the eye and said, "You've got 5 seconds to walk away before I say something you'll regret for the rest of your life." He laughed. Laughed. "Oh, sweetheart," he sneered, "what secrets do you possibly have? Everyone already knows you're the boring, washed-up housewife who never amounted to anything but pot roast and PTA meetings." My vision went red. Something in me snapped. "You want secrets?" I said, loud enough for the music to stop, for the guests to freeze mid-toast. "All right, Thomas. Let's talk about secrets. Let's talk about how you've been draining our joint account for 2 years, claiming it's for work trips while you've been paying for hotel rooms in Chicago. Or how about the woman who keeps calling the house, hanging up the second I answer?" He went pale. And that's when I knew, I had him. "Oh, don't look so shocked," I said. "You really thought I wouldn't figure it out? That I'd just sit at home sewing buttons and raising your kids while you played bachelor in another zip code?" His face twisted, but he didn't deny it. "Coward. Eleanor, we are not doing this here," he growled. "Oh, we absolutely are," I snapped back. "You started it. You decided to tear me down in front of my family, in front of my sister, at a wedding. So now, let's finish it. Let's really give them something to talk about." He reached out to grab me again, but this time I yanked my arm back. "Touch me again and I swear, I'll break your hand with the heel of this shoe." My baby sister Lila rushed over, grabbing my shoulder. "Ellie, stop, please." "No," I said, voice trembling but firm. "I've spent 15 years biting my tongue for this man. I'm done pretending. I'm done covering up his messes, excusing his disrespect, laughing off his insults. And I'm sure as hell done protecting him." The crowd was quiet, hanging on every word like a Sunday sermon. "You want to act like you're some high and mighty businessman?" I said, turning to Thomas. "Then explain to this room why your so-called accounting firm was suspended by the state bar last March. Why you've been forging client signatures and laundering expenses through fake contracts." He flinched. That was when my Uncle Raymond, who used to be a district judge, stepped forward. "Is that true, Thomas?" he asked, voice like thunder. "Because if it is, then you're not just a lying husband, you're a criminal." Thomas looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. I straightened my spine and added, "You don't get to destroy people and walk away clean, Thomas. Not anymore." I kept quiet to protect our children. To protect your reputation. But now? You can explain yourself to them. And to the IRS. Because everything you thought you buried? I dug it up. And just like that, I walked away. Past the stunned guests. Past my own shame. Past the weight I'd carried like a boulder on my back for over a decade. I didn't cry until I got to the parking lot. Not because I was broken. But because I was finally free. And that was only the beginning. Because what I discovered next would make that night look like child's play. He thought his worst secret was in a hotel ledger. He had no idea what was hidden in the old safety deposit box I found later that week. And when I opened it, everything changed. Forever. I didn't sleep that night. After I drove home from the wedding, still in my heels, still in that beautiful navy gown that now felt like a costume, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the front porch until sunrise. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. Still, like the moment right before a storm tears your house apart. Because what Thomas didn't know was that I'd already started digging months ago. I wasn't just bluffing in that ballroom. I'd seen the signs for years: late nights, sudden business trips, unexplained bank charges. But it was never the cheating that bothered me the most. It was the gaslighting. The way he made me feel crazy for even noticing. I'd say, "Where were you last night?" and he'd laugh and say, "Jesus, Eleanor, you really need a hobby." I'd find lipstick on his collar and he'd accuse me of planting it. He was so good at lying, I started doubting my own sanity. I started apologizing for things I never did. Until one day, I stopped apologizing. And I started documenting. Every receipt. Every suspicious voicemail. Every business dinner that didn't match the calendar in his drawer. I'd been quiet. But not stupid. And now that he'd shown the whole world who he really was, now that he ripped the mask off in front of my entire family, I had nothing left to lose. The morning after the wedding, I went straight to the basement. There was a trunk he never touched, shoved behind the water heater. Old rusted hinges, dusty top. It used to belong to his father. He told me never to go near it, said it had war memorabilia and private documents. Of course I opened it. The key was still taped under the lid. Inside, I found a worn leather briefcase. Locked. I didn't have the code, but I had something better, a crowbar. When that lock snapped, the past 10 years of my life cracked open with it. Inside the case were 2 passports. Both with Thomas's face, but one had a different name, Marcus Dean Caldwell. There were foreign bank statements. Swiss accounts. Dozens of names I'd never seen, but with payments traced back to his signature. And then I found the envelope. It had my name on it. My maiden name. And inside was a document that made my stomach lurch, a life insurance policy. One I had never signed. One where my signature was forged. It listed me as deceased. Deceased. I sat on the floor of the basement, holding that paper like it was poison, my fingers trembling so hard I couldn't even fold it back. Thomas wasn't just a cheater. He wasn't just cruel. He was dangerous. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at it. But when I finally stood up, I wasn't shaking anymore. I was ready. I took that briefcase upstairs and laid out every piece of evidence on the kitchen table: the forged policy, the fake ID, the accounts, the receipts, and I took photos of everything. Front, back, up close. I labeled them and slid them into an envelope. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, my cousin April. April worked for a criminal investigator in Cook County. She didn't ask why I was calling. She just said, "Are you safe?" I told her the truth, I don't know yet. She came within the hour. And when I showed her what I'd found, she didn't speak for a full minute. Then she looked me dead in the eyes and said, Ellie, I think your husband's not just cheating. I think he might be running a shell operation for organized fraud. I should have been shocked. I should have broken down. But instead, I nodded. Because deep down, I always knew Thomas wasn't just a liar. He was a con. He married me because I was quiet. Because I was loyal. Because I didn't ask questions. But now? Now I had questions. I had evidence. I had power. And I was going to take back everything he ever stole, my trust, my dignity, my name. April took the documents to her office. She promised they'd be discreet. I didn't tell Thomas what I'd found. Not yet. I wanted him to sweat. So when he walked through the door that night, drunk again, pretending like nothing had happened at the wedding, like he hadn't tried to tear me apart in front of my own blood, I smiled. I cooked him dinner. Chicken pot pie. His favorite. I asked him how his work trip had gone. He looked suspicious, but not enough to question it. He thought I was broken. But I was baiting him. Because the next move would be mine. And he'd never see it coming. The thing about pretending is, once you get good at it, no one questions you. That week, I pretended to be the same doting wife he'd paraded around all those years. I made coffee in the morning, laughed at his bad jokes, even folded his laundry with a smile on my face. But every night after he fell asleep, I was someone else. I was a hunter. Tracking every call, every email, every little slip he didn't think twice about. April had given me a burner phone, one that couldn't be traced back to me. Every time Thomas left the house, I'd use it to contact her office. They'd already begun tracing the wire transfers linked to that second identity, Marcus Caldwell. Apparently, Marcus had rented a condo on the other side of town, registered under a fake LLC. But what caught my attention wasn't the condo. It was a florist. A little boutique shop that kept popping up on his bank statements. He'd spent nearly $4,000 there in the past 6 months. I hadn't received a single bouquet. So I went. Not as Eleanor, not in pearls and heels. I tied my hair back, wore a hoodie, no makeup, just a credit card under a different name. I walked into the shop on a rainy Thursday morning, pretending to shop for my cousin's engagement. The girl behind the counter was barely 20, friendly, clueless. She flipped through the account records when I asked if I could match an arrangement my cousin had received. And there it was. The Caldwell account. Recurring orders, always sent to the same address. But it wasn't the condo. It was a name. Delivered to Claire Bennett. I memorized the address. Thanked her. Walked out like nothing happened. And then I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Claire. He used to work with a Claire. Back when he was still pretending to be a project manager for that fake consulting firm. I'd met her once, brown hair, dimples, always smiling. She'd shaken my hand like it meant nothing. I remember the way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't watching. That softness. That possessiveness. I should have known. So I drove. Straight to the address listed on the florist's record. A small craftsman house, blue shutters, well-kept lawn. 2 cars in the driveway. I didn't even hesitate. I parked across the street, waited until I saw her silhouette move past the window, and then walked straight up to the door. I didn't knock. I rang the bell, twice. When she opened it, her face went pale. Like she'd seen a ghost. Claire, I said. Calm. Even. Long time. She stammered. Eleanor? Don't worry, I smiled. I'm not here to fight. That was a lie. But I was done raising my voice. Now, I wanted answers. She tried to close the door, but I blocked it with my hand. Move, and I scream, I warned. Let your neighbors hear who you really are. She froze. Then stepped aside. The house was too nice for someone working in marketing. Candles everywhere. Expensive rugs. And on the entry table, a framed photo of her and my husband at Niagara Falls. I didn't say a word. I just walked to the photo, picked it up, and stared. She finally spoke. I didn't know he was still married. I turned to her, cold. Don't lie to me. I swear, she insisted, voice shaking. He said you left him 2 years ago. That the divorce was final. He said you took the house, the dog, Anne. The dog? I snapped. Lady died 4 years ago. She blinked. She didn't know. He'd lied to her too. I stepped closer. Did he ever mention a man named Marcus Caldwell? She hesitated. Then slowly nodded. That's the name on the lease, she whispered. He said it was for privacy, that he had enemies. I laughed. Not out of humor. Out of disbelief. Enemies. Yes, women with brains. Claire, I said, my voice like ice, you need to listen to me carefully. He's not just cheating on me. He's committing federal crimes. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Forgery. And you. If you're involved in any of his accounts, even by accident, you could go down too. She went silent. Dead silent. And then her hands started to shake. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear to God, Eleanor, I didn't know. I believed her. But I didn't care. Because I wasn't here to warn her. I was here to use her. Good, I said, walking back to the door. Then you'll help me. She followed. Help you do what? I turned and met her eyes. Take him down. I don't know what shocked me more, that Claire agreed to help me, or how quickly she turned on him once she did. The woman who once kissed my husband behind my back was now texting me updates when he sneezed. Every conversation, every dinner plan, every lie he told her, she documented it and sent it to me. At first, I hated her. Watching those messages come through felt like swallowing glass. But over time, that hate turned into something else. Pity, maybe. Empathy? She was manipulated, too. He told her the same stories he used on me years ago, the sob tales about how I was cold, how I never supported his dreams, how I emasculated him in front of his friends. Funny how the same script always finds a new stage. But this time, the show was about to end. Claire and I met once a week, always at the same bookstore cafe, away from security cameras. April guided us, she was the brain behind it all. A full strategy, top to bottom. Gather evidence, secure digital trails, then confront him in a way that forced a confession. But we needed bait. A situation he wouldn't be able to control. So we staged a breakdown. Claire told him she was pregnant. It wasn't true, but the timing was flawless. He panicked. Cancelled meetings. Stopped going to the condo. Started moving money from his personal account to a new, untraceable fund under yet another fake name. He thought he was buying time. He didn't know time was exactly what we needed. April tracked the new account. Claire forwarded every shady wire. I started leaving small, subtle clues in the house, a voicemail left undeleted, a receipt half-torn on his nightstand. Just enough to make him nervous. Just enough to shake him. And then came the trap. We invited him to dinner, me, Claire, and Thomas, under the pretense of clearing the air. I told him I wanted to discuss our marriage like adults, and that Claire deserved to be part of the conversation. At first, he refused. Then I mentioned lawyers. Suddenly, he was very available. We booked a private dining room at a high-end restaurant. Claire wore red, Thomas always fell for red, and I wore black, sleek and clean. Like a widow. Or a judge. He showed up 20 minutes late, cocky as ever. When he walked in and saw the two of us sitting side by side, something flickered in his eyes. Not fear. Annoyance. Like we were inconveniencing him. He sat down, tossed his napkin in his lap, and said, "So which one of you wants to apologize first?" I smiled. "You do." He scoffed. "For what? Loving someone who actually believes in me?" Claire winced. But she stayed quiet, just like we planned. "You lied to both of us," I said. "About the divorce. About your finances. About your identity." "Jesus, Eleanor," he rolled his eyes. "You've always had a flair for drama. Is Marcus Caldwell dramatic?" I asked. His head snapped toward me so fast I thought he'd get whiplash. There it was. The crack in the mask. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Printed bank statements. Wire transfers. Condo leases. And the kicker, a notarized document with his real signature next to his fake name. He flipped through the pages, his hands shaking slightly. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "You went through all this trouble," he smirked, "and for what? You think you'll win something?" I leaned in, voice low. "I don't need to win. I just want to make sure you lose." His expression changed. Gone was the smugness. He looked at Claire. "You gave her this?" She met his stare, finally bold. "No. I gave her you." He slammed his hands on the table, making the wine glasses tremble. The waiter peered in from the hallway, but I raised a hand, signaling everything was fine. It wasn't. He stood up, towering over us. "I should have left you years ago," he hissed. "You're a parasite, Eleanor. Always have been. Living off my name, my work." "Your work?" I cut him off. "Your work is fraud. Your name isn't even real. Everything you built was on my credit, my family's trust fund, my name. You wore my money like a mask, Thomas. But the party's over." He opened his mouth to yell, and that's when the door opened. April stepped inside. Not in uniform. Not with a badge. Just a calm, competent woman with a small voice recorder in her hand. "Got everything," she said. "He just admitted to using your name for financial gain. That's enough for us to start." He froze. Then his entire body slumped back into the chair. Defeated. Quiet. Claire and I stood together, side by side. I looked down at him one last time. And I said, "Next time you humiliate someone in public, make sure they don't have more power than you think." Then I walked away. Claire followed. And behind us, Thomas Caldwell, or whatever name he chose to hide behind, finally learned what it felt like to be powerless. The day of my sister's wedding replayed in my mind like a record I couldn't break. His voice, loud enough to silence the dance floor. His laughter when I spilled wine on my dress, the way he shoved me in front of everyone like I was an embarrassment. People gasped. Some chuckled nervously. A few even pulled out their phones. He thought it was funny. He humiliated me at my own sister's wedding. But now? Now, it was my turn. The venue was packed, family, old friends, and a few special guests who had no idea they were about to witness the end of a man who'd built his entire life on lies. It was my mother's retirement party, and I was asked to give a toast. Thomas didn't know I'd be speaking. He didn't even know Claire was coming. And he definitely didn't know that I'd invited April and her department, front row, in plain clothes. He smiled at me from across the room as I took the mic. A smug, stupid smile. He had no idea the microphone wasn't just for the toast. It was for the truth. I stood at the podium, looked out over the crowd, and took a breath that carried 5 years of pain with it. "My name," I began, "is Eleanor Grace Cartwright. Some of you know me as a daughter. Some as a sister. Others as the quiet wife standing behind a man who loved the sound of his own voice." The room chuckled politely. But I didn't smile. Tonight, I'd like to raise a glass, I continued, not just to my mother, who built this family with love, discipline, and an unshakable sense of dignity, but also to every woman in this room who's ever been made to feel less. Thomas shifted in his seat. And while we're celebrating the powerful women in our lives, I think it's only fair that we talk about the men who underestimated them. I watched his face begin to change, a flicker of discomfort. Good. See, 5 months ago, I said slowly, I found out that my husband, the man who stood beside me at this very table during my sister's wedding, had another condo, another woman, and another name. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Thomas stood. But I raised my hand, silencing him with nothing more than a look. He used my accounts to fund his second life. Lied to my family. Spent money he never earned. And worst of all, he thought I'd never find out. I pulled the microphone from the stand and walked toward him. Face to face. Thomas? Or should I say Marcus? I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Would you like to tell the room how many accounts you opened under fake IDs? Silence. I have the bank statements. I have the fake leases. I have the voice recordings from the night you called me a parasite and said I never mattered. He opened his mouth, but Claire stepped into the light. Wearing red again. Holding her own mic. Everything she's saying is true, Claire said, voice shaking just slightly. I helped him at first. I believed him. I thought he was leaving a cold wife for love. I didn't realize I was just next in line. He turned to her, betrayed. You were nothing without me, he hissed. No, Claire replied. You were nothing without her. The room was still. April stepped forward, showing her badge just enough for him to see it. His face drained of color. You're under investigation, she said calmly. But please, enjoy the rest of the party. Thomas tried to speak. To run. To salvage something. But no one stopped to listen. He stumbled out of the hall, and no one followed. No applause. No sympathy. Just cold silence. I walked back to the stage, heart pounding, eyes wet, not from sadness, but from release. And I raised my glass one last time. To dignity, I said. To strength. And to never letting a man convince you that you're worth less than the truth. The room erupted. Cheers. Applause. A standing ovation. Not for the scandal. Not for the drama. But for the woman who finally stood up and said, enough. That night, I danced harder than I ever had. Not because I was happy. But because I was free. And sometimes, freedom feels like the best revenge of all.